And one is authoritarian, one is permissive, and one is authoritative. I'm just going to go into those briefly. The authoritarian model, and it's our theory that parenting and teaching is very connected. There's a lot of connection between those 2 points. The authoritarian model of teaching or parenting is very strict, which does not allow for creativity. Teacher uses rules, very strong, minimal discussion and dialogue, and it's a very old-fashioned and traditional way. The second way of teaching is a permissive, or what's called a laissez-faire style, which in that type of parenting/teaching, there's minimum rules. It allows for complete creativity, however there are no boundaries, so children can do whatever they like. It can result in complete chaos. This was very popular based on what's called Bayes' clarification in the 80s, which was based on Rogerian psychology, where there was trying to be a development of a lot of empathy and care, which is good for adults, but young children and teenagers don't necessarily have the cognitive development or even the emotional development to be able to make good choices always. And that was very clearly debunked in the 1990s when we started character education. And I worked with the grandfather of character education who helped us do these books, Dr. Thomas Lacona. And within character education, we focus on what's called authoritative style of teaching/parenting, which is a balance. Because if you're too strict as a teacher, teenagers especially will react. If you're too loose, they bounce off the walls, they go nuts. But you've got to find that midway point. And there are a few elements of that which are really important. There are boundaries, but these are discussed. The first week in character education programs, we actually do a lot of work as per organizing what the rules will be. And the children and the teenagers actually sign off on this. And then when they do something against that, they can say, well, we should agree to this. It's a much better way of doing it rather than just creating it ourselves. It encourages and allows for ample creativity, which is really important for their moral and social development. If they don't feel like they have a voice in something, then they're not going to do it very well. It balances the strict and very loose styles of the permissive and authoritarian. Children and teenagers blossom in this because they can be encouraged to do it. It's focused on empathy, compassion, mutual respect, accountability, and responsibility. However, in any form of teaching, there is a certain amount of conflict that goes on. And within this conflict, we want to really look at what is the core problem of that. And underneath different styles of conflict, and this is something called compassionate parenting by Dr. Stephen Stosny. I'll leave these up the front here and have a look at them. It goes into anger management, and Kay asked me to go into dealing with anger. Is there a lot of issues with anger in the Caribbean? Yes. Do you think the same in America? Yes. So dealing with anger is always a tricky thing, and we need to be able to understand where the anger is coming from. There's a certain level of anxiety, guilt, and shame that blocks what we call core value. Core value is what we want to try and get the younger people towards. That's their real self. Underneath the guilt and shame, underneath the anger is guilt and shame, underneath that is fear, and then underneath that is our what we call core value, or we would say our true selves, as or more focus on a religious perspective. So young people can get stuck on any level, and it impairs their ability to convert a negative experience, and that's what we want them to do. How we can help them evolve to be able to control their emotions and feelings. Now, it's really important. One element of anger management that many people don't realize is that when someone is what's called flooded, there's no left-right brain thinking going on. So that means If I get really upset, like I almost did at the airport yesterday, when I couldn't catch my flight, then there's no logical thinking going on. Now for men, it's really important, and especially for teenagers, to get them out and do something. If they run around, walk, if they go and play a sport, play basketball, kick a soccer ball, let out that feeling. There's a lot of domestic violence that occurs in homes when women or children try and stop the father from going out and letting that anger out. And it takes at least 30 minutes for men to calm down. How about for you ladies? How long does it take for you to calm down? Days, weeks, months? We don't have all the research on that yet. We're still trying to work that one out. But when you get upset, what do you do? Oh, you don't say anything? Eat? Go shopping? Talk to your friend? But usually running around doesn't do anything for you, right? Okay, so men and women are very, very different. And we can't treat boys the same way we treat girls. Especially boys need a calm down time, and they need to go out and hit the tree, or run around, or go for a swim, or do something physical. And then the left and right brain thinking can come back again. Because if we don't have left and right brain thinking, then what happens is we're acting as animals. And it's pure adrenaline. It's like a mountain lion. That's what people become. And it's true for men and for women, but it's more true for men than for women. So we have to do something physical, and by getting out all of that testosterone, then they can calm down and be able to move forward. So then the goal is for them to transcend and have a positive experience. We're always trying to help young people and adults have a positive experience. The sidetracks are blame, anger, shut down, and then many young people, I'm sure here and in the States, go into drinking, taking drugs, work excessively, and have multiple relationships. But to ascertain core values, we have to be able to help them go beyond all these levels. And there's certain levels that need to be clarified so that we can be able to help them find their real character, which is what real core value is. So underneath one level is anxiety, a possible loss, rejection, failure, exposure, inability to cope, or self-doubt. Guilt is another form of issues when people get upset. There's a certain amount of guilt, a failure to emotionally connect, protect, nurture, provide, or value. Another level of challenges is shame, which is inadequate, unworthy, or unfit. And then there's the level of fear, which is of isolation, deprivation, annihilation, disaster, tragedy, or catastrophe. And then at the bottom of all that is core value. And core value is a state of grace, awareness of a personal value with motivation to love, value, and invest positive emotions. It transcends anger, anxiety, guilt, shame, and fear. So all those different levels. And it's not enough just to say to a young teenager especially, just get over it. The simple elements are not going to work. They have to be able to work through it, especially older teenagers, 18 and older especially.